Hi everyone and good evening. Welcome to the Beauty Triangle webinar. It's so brilliant to have so many of you with us here tonight. I hope you're all feeling happy and healthy and keeping your spirits up in this rather gloomy January. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Francesca White and I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle. So here we are in another lockdown, and whilst I'm sure it's not quite the start to the year that any of us wanted, it's amazing, and I'm very grateful that we can all still come together to have these conversations, even if they are just virtual for now. And tonight we have a super inspiring discussion lined up and an even more inspiring panel who I'm really excited to introduce you to. But first, a really quick recap for any newcomers. The Beauty Triangle evolved out of a need to get people talking about their health and well-being, but also as a way to connect people with the very best practitioners out there. So our monthly events and webinars always zone in on a single topic and always showcase a panel of 3 experts who we refer to as our Beauty Triangle. After all, I think we can all agree the world of wellness is moving so fast, yet there is still a genuine need for people to be out there and talking about these issues that are really important to them. So we hope that these discussions can help you, whether you're with us or tuning in virtually. But anyway, tonight we have an incredible panel lined up to chat with you tonight, starting with Dr. Rita Rakus, aesthetic doctor to the stars, known for her amazing Knightsbridge clinic. We also have Miss Nora Nugent, who is an incredible consultant plastic surgeon. Very honoured to have her here with us tonight. And then finally, Lanserhof's integrative health expert, Dr. Ursula Levine. And because it's January and we wanted to inspire some positive thinking, we will be discussing how to grow a new body. So that's everything from the latest technologies to strengthen our physiques, to the surgical procedures that will restore our sense of self, and finally to the immune boosting tips and tricks that we can integrate into our day-to-day lives at home and keep us feeling ready to face the world. As always, there'll be some time at the very end for an audience Q&A, so if any questions do occur to you, just pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and we will do our best to come to those at the very end. So that's enough from me. I'm going to introduce you very quickly to our 3 panelists and then we're going to get cracking. So firstly, Dr. Rakus, would you like to say a very quick hello to everyone?
Good evening, and it's so exciting to be part of the panel and discussion tonight. And I'm here in Knightsbridge, where our clinic is opposite Harrods, and we specialise in all non-surgical cosmetic treatments, including wellness and health.
Perfect. Lovely synopsis, Dr. Rakus. Thank you so much. Nora, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Nora Nugent. I'm a consultant plastic surgeon based in Kent and Sussex, and mainly based in Tunbridge Wells.
Thank you very much, Nora.
And I will be speaking about body contouring.
Perfect. We're so delighted to have you here tonight. Thank you for being with us. And finally, Dr. Levine. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Ursula Levine. I'm a GP and specialist, as you said, for integrative medicine at Lanserhof at the Arts Club in Mayfair.
Perfect. So good to have you with us. I'm so glad I said your title correctly. I always stumble over integrative health, but I think we're all going to find out exactly what that title means in due course. So let's crack on with our conversation. First up is the amazing Dr. Rita Rakus, London's undisputed queen of machines. Dr. Rakus has a device ready to tackle any body concern that you might have. And she's also the most recent clinic in the UK to launch the new Sculpt Neo, which we're going to be hearing about as well. So Rita, thank you so much for being here at first. Tell us a little bit more about all these amazing technologies, because you have machines that can freeze fat, tighten the skin, do away with cellulite. But yeah, I think one of these really exciting developments that we've seen of late is this whole concept of muscle strengthening. And I think in January, and when we're really thinking about our resilience, it's really key. So why do you think that is? Why are we so interested now in the muscle toning?
I think before I answer that directly, what has happened over the last 20 years, machines have really come into their own. And if you remember, your iPhone 2 or 3 and now iPhone 11 or 12, the amazing leaps in technology. And I believe now the latest iPhone has more computing power than when they sent men to the moon. So the machines as well. I remember when I first started in this field and which is still good, but it's more in beauty salons. You know, the only real machine out there was Casey and a few other machines. Now, so them are so advanced, and you can get real results. And the other big innovation has been the classic approach was no pain, no gain. Now, the better the machine, the less painful it is. So not only do you have machines that where you actually get a good result, but they're no longer excruciatingly painful.
And that's always one of the questions I always get asked. Whenever I speak about a treatment, people will always say, but is it painful? And it's so nice that we can now legitimately say, hand on heart, actually it's not.
And so now you've got the various machines that will incorporate skin tightening, muscle building, fat loss, reduction in cellulite. But the real game changer has been the M-Sculpt by BTL. And I'd like to add at this point, I've got no vested interest in any of these companies. And then the M-Sculpt Neo. Now, it's been a game changer. It's the first technology that has used the same technology as when you go into an MRI scanner. And you can actually have 20,000 muscle contractions in 30 minutes.
It's quite amazing. It's the equivalent of doing 20,000 sit-ups, isn't it, in half an hour if you have it on your tummy, for example.
Exactly. And some of my patients ask me, can I exercise after I've had my M-Sculpt? And I said, well, you probably won't feel like it, but in principle, yes. Because if you go and do another 100 sit-ups, that's like 10 seconds on the machine or even less. So
exactly,
it's going to interfere. And as I said, the new M-Sculpt Neo now as well incorporates radio frequency as well. So not only does it tighten the muscle, and besides tightening the muscle, it will also grow muscle. So it'll be stronger and there will be muscle hypertrophy. And it does it on the tummy, the bottom, arms, legs. And I've just heard this new, probably it's not that new, but I just heard it the other day, the COVID bum. I know we've had masks.
What's the COVID bum? Oh, is it because we've been sitting around on our asses the past year?
So we have got the perfect answer to the COVID bum. You get 20,000 contractions on your, on your bottom. And the beauty of it is when you have the two paddles on your bottom, you're not getting any sort of other muscle hypertrophy when you're trying to do your squats. Not that you could do 20,000 squats. And
well, exactly. It's allowing your body to do things that it would never be able to do under its own efforts.
Exactly. And just to add in quickly, they have the sister machine, the M-Cellar chair, which does 11,000 Kegels or pelvic floor exercises in half an hour. Now, I don't think I've done 11,000 Kegels in my life.
I mean, that's super impressive, even if you're the most hardened sort of postnatal sort of mother and who, really invested. I mean, that's impressive.
And so what is the beauty of especially the tummy M-Sculpt Neo combined with the M-Cellar chair, you get a wonderful central core tightening. And the new Neo now is revolutionary. It will reduce fat by 35%, which is quite...
It will reduce fat by 35%.
Yes. It
God, that's incredible.
Muscle by 25%. It is also very good for the postpartum diastasis recti, where you get the separation of the muscle.
Absolutely. And that's very incredible. It's incredible because actually, whilst you're building muscle mass as well, your body in turn is burning more calories. So I imagine it's sort of like turning on a tap, and that hopefully over time the fat is sort of dripping off. It's a very sort of clever means of refining the body.
And as well with that, the Neo also, as I said, has the radio frequency with it. So it tightens the skin. So it's the classic mummy tummy is attacked at every angle, at every level. In the past, we would have to do M-Sculpt, then a bit of radio frequency skin tightening. And then if they were carrying too much fat, and excuse the term, but we'd have to debulk our patients first, because if there was more than 4 centimeters of fat, you had to debulk first for the energy to get into the muscle, whereas now you can have quite a bit of fat there with the new Neo. So it's just, it's a real game.
That's interesting, you're right, because previously you would have advised a machine like a cool sculpting, for example, to sort of get the patient down to their ideal sort of shape, and then you would go in with those very focused technologies and really tweak and refine, whereas the Neo can now address all of that in one hit.
Having said that, we still combine, cool sculpting with the Neo, for example, there may be just that extra bit, or the love handles, or other areas. And, you know, we have Dr. Galina at the clinic, who's the queen of cool sculpting.
She is your body sculpting expert. We just had a question pop up, and I'm going to ask it now rather than at the end because it's relevant. But what areas of the body can you do with this? Do you have an exhaustive list for us?
Yes, you can do your tummy, you can do your bottom, you can do your inner thighs, you can do your arms.
And how can you book in for an afternoon and do all of those things and emerge with a whole new body? Because if so, then this webinar is done.
However, although it's not painful, it only targets muscle and skin. It doesn't target pain fibers or abdominal organs. When I had my first treatment, I thought, oh my God, all my internal organs are being rattled around. It feels like it can't do any harm. And the first time you have it, it could feel a bit intense. However, we usually recommend possibly only to have 2 areas at a time because there's a scale of 0 to 100. We need to get you at least up to 70, but we like to get you up to 100% to get the full effect. Sometimes you don't have to worry if the first treatment you're feeling a bit nervous. We do, you know, put you up to 70, and then you can have an extra treatment at the end. But it is worthwhile, just from a psychological point of view, that it can be, and then it's the time as well. And
if I can just say, as somebody who's actually tried this, you know, actually I think you got unstuck, you know, just before we went into the second lockdown. I managed to squeeze in a quick session, and it does feel different on different areas of the body. I would say it is very intense on your stomach, for example, whereas on your bottom, maybe it's a little less so. I think most of us sort of ladies seem to have a little more padding on our bottoms, and it just feels like a very intense vibration. It's a fascinating machine. It sort of looks like you have defibrillators sort of hooked up to your body and you get zapped, but it's wildly futuristic. And actually it's very interesting because you also mentioned the Emzella chair, which is obviously using the same technology, but it's entirely designed to tighten pelvic floors. So it has a very functional gain as well, doesn't it?
And also, it's a great help for urinary incontinence, whether it's an oops moment, preventive for getting up through the night, or actually full blown where you're wearing pads. And we've had some brilliant success with even one of our surgical nurses. It's changed her whole life as far as, because she had quite high-grade urinary incontinence. So it's very exciting because there's so many ladies suffer in silence with this situation.
I totally agree. And sorry to interrupt, but I often think as well, we talk about, you know, growing a new body, and it's all sort of very tongue in cheek. But I think when we think about bodies, we do often sort of think about, you know, the tummy, the boobs, the bottom, but actually, you know, what's going on downstairs as well is just as important, particularly, you know, post-pregnancy and sort of going through menopause and everything. It's a very big unspoken subject, and it's something that I think more women need to be more aware of.
Also, the other, when we do the Emzella and the tummy Emsculpt Neo, it's very good for a potentially improvement of bad backs, because you know, you could do less exercise, you get a better strengthening of the core. So there have been many reports of strengthening backs and reducing back pain. And of course, we mustn't forget the gentlemen. It's very good for gentlemen in that area, besides the tummy, but the Emzella chair as well. It increases blood flow in the area, strengthens, helps with all sorts of problems. And there have been quite a lot of studies and clinical papers in the UK and also the USA for, you know, improvement for gentlemen.
That's very interesting. So we're going to have a better time in the bedroom as well, men and women. I think it's interesting what you said about the back pain as well, because I've heard of Emsculpt being very, very good for the core strength, exactly as you say, but also for the back pain. And I think also what's quite important to remember with all these technologies is that by preserving that crucial muscle mass, you know, we're preventing things like osteoporosis further down the line as well. And, you know, often when we talk about improving our bodies, we have an aesthetic in mind, but we do also want to feel like we're protecting our bodies and we're fortifying them for the years ahead, don't we?
And also, my last comment is that, as you know, as far as cardiovascular health, that midriff bulge is very, very unhealthy for your cardiovascular system. So to have good toning there and reduce fat is very important for that area.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to sort of be living a long and healthy life. I mean, speaking of longevity as well, because machines aside, you also have some really interesting programs for longevity that people can follow at home, like Prolon, for example. Maybe you can explain a little bit about that, because that's an intermittent fasting based diet, isn't it? That sort of tricks the body into behaving younger.
Exactly. Prolon is very exciting. I first came across it a few years ago as being part of the Buck Institute in California, where it's on the committee, and they have all the latest anti-aging and longevity programs. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Professor Walter Longo, who has done all the research on Prolon. And as we know, there are so many fasting diets out there, and fasting has been part of everyone's cultures for almost thousands of years. But what Professor Longo did was they at UCLA, they did about 8 years of research on fasting and how it works and this and that. So they came up with the concept that if you have a course of Prolon once a month in the first year, probably for 3 months of the year, and then at least once a year, so you have what you call the Prolon box, and your body fasts for 5 days, and it tricks the ingredients, tricks your body into thinking it's fasting, but you do have some ingredients. They're all natural. There are about 60 different ingredients. And so you go on this Prolon course. Now, what happens is you're on a very low calorie count and fasting. And so your immune system rockets up. And as we know, all aging and diseases stem from inflammation. And so it will reduce your inflammation. It's like resetting your computer. It resets your whole body. And the other thing that it's not, well, theoretically part of the Prolon course, but that they advocate 2 things that are very healthy for you to try and fast through the night. So say, for example, if you can do a 15-hour fast, and when you have the opportunity to have your evening meal at 6 and then maybe have breakfast at 9, so you've got 15 hours. And the third thing is that I grew up totally opposite in Australia, where we'd have steak for breakfast, is a low
Really? Goodness.
low animal protein diet. Apparently is fantastic for anti-aging. So the Prolon, and they've actually got a program called Chemo Leave with the Prolon.
Okay, I've not heard of this one.
They've shown if you use Prolon, say with chemotherapy, the results can be better and the side effects are not as bad. They've done a lot of studies, because Dr. Longo is originally from Italy, near Genoa. And he said he was very lucky as far as in longevity. He grew up in a poor area where they just ate beans, which is the
my goodness, I'm sure he was very slender as a result of that.
Very little meat. But they did a lot of studies in Italy with, say, breast cancer and follow-up. And with the Prolon, they've been very successful. And also things like gut disease, ulcerative colitis. There's medical.
I think you're right. The effect of fasting on the body, and I know Dr. Levine will really sort of dip into this properly, because this is her sort of skill set also, but it has such a transformative effect on the body, doesn't it? And what's very interesting about the Prolon is that actually you are still eating 4 to 5, I think 4 meals a day. I did it one January, and it was you that introduced me to it. And the portions are very meager. I mean, we're talking sort of powdered soups and a sort of cereal bar for breakfast, and lots of tea, and coffee's banned, which is a nightmare. But if you can get through the 5 days, you really, really do know that you're going to sort of feel brilliant at the end. And I think it's actually probably a very similar feeling to how you feel at Lanserhof, probably when you get through that program. But I know we're going to speak to Dr. Levine more about that. And Dr. Rakus, anyway, the great thing about Prolon obviously is that we can all do it at home whilst we're in a lockdown. So it's something that obviously you would oversee a program, but people can still be, doing this from the comfort of their own home.
Yes, and you have to have your routine medical check. Got diabetes, this, that. You're also not advised. You have to be active, but don't do serious exercise when you're on the diet. So you have your medical check first, and then you can have the Prolon at home. And it's been it's been very successful in this lockdown period, and trying to prepare people as well for when they can come in and have treatments with the machines. And after,
exactly, it's a nice kickstart, isn't it?
Exactly.
And talking about how else you can support patients from home, because everyone is, obviously in a lockdown. They don't have the access necessarily to come and do all of these wonderful treatments that you're offering. But what are the ways that whilst we're at home you can still continue to support us? What are you doing from the clinic?
Well, obviously, as all of us, we're doing a lot of video calls with our patients at home, and which I think we'll talk about in a second. You know, we've got the new revolutionary Universe Skin that we can do from home, but we also have Dr. Galina, who's a psychiatrist who's been doing stress management, and our new team member, Dr. Max Malik, who's a psychiatrist currently working with the NHS as well in psychiatry as our new team members. So we're able to do a lot of support, and we can have complementary stress consultations and even down to more formal consultations if patients.
That's amazing.
And also, I'm lucky enough to have my team who are answering the phone from home, and the amount of work they do with our patients, because often our patients will say, well, you're the only people that I'm really talking to, because even though there are a lot of video calls and one thing and another, but we have quite a few patients that are actually quite lonely and on their own, and they love to chat to someone where they
I agree, and I think that's a really an unspoken part of the aesthetics industry. You know, we go to these clinics and we see our sort of regular cosmetic doctors, and actually it's something that a lot of women and men, I'm sure, look forward to. You know, you have a relationship with that aesthetic practitioner, or rather that's something we certainly want to be aiming to have, because that's how we get the best long-term results. And I think you're right, it's lovely to be able to support people, even if what they want is a conversation, or maybe it's to sort out their skin, which has been sort of in flux ever since we went into lockdown, and they haven't quite got to grips with it. You mentioned Universe Skin, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that works as well, because that's a very, very clever way that we can get on top of our complexions whilst we're in lockdown.
Well, Universe Skin is one of the more exciting innovations in the skin field, and especially in lockdown, it's come into its own, because with their new artificial intelligence and algorithms, again, I mentioned the dreaded iPhone and how it's advanced from iPhone 1 or 2 to 11 and 12, and now the latest iPhones can even measure your blood pressure, apparently, because they can measure the dilation of your veins and blood vessels on your cell.
It's absolutely staggering what our phones can do. It's actually terrifying.
So now they can, I don't know if you've ever had one of our Visia skin analysis. So the new iPhone selfie with its artificial intelligence is 10 times more powerful than having a Visia done. And also,
goodness. And so Visia is the sort of introductory skin analysis you do for a lot of patients, isn't it? You know, it takes photographs in all different lights. It shows you if you have blackheads or oil or spots, and it's, again, quite terrifying. But the iPhone is even more powerful. Who knew?
10 times more powerful. And
wow.
It is also with the new algorithms as well. So Universe Skin, I don't know if most of you have heard of some of the more traditional brands like La Roche-Posay or IS Clinic. So the founders of those then founded Universe Skin, which is medical only, and they got all the background clinical data from 1,000 handpicked dermatologists around the world. And we are lucky enough to be in their top 20 doctors as part of the team.
Oh, congratulations.
I know. That's very exciting. And then on top of that, they have all their algorithms and artificial intelligence. So basically how it works, you have your super artificial intelligence selfie done. Then you go through a very detailed questionnaire that's married up with the selfie. Then you have a chat to your doctor, like myself, and go through everything. Now, they have about a few thousand different types of permutations and combinations of ingredients, strengths, all that sort of thing. So it gets quite complicated. But with the artificial intelligence and the algorithms, it is helped quite a lot. And there are products in there that haven't been available so far, either not at all or in medical grade strengths. And so it's quite revolutionary. And if I may so preempt you, you've tried it yourself, haven't you, Francesca?
I did. I'm slightly obsessed with it, but also because I'll try and do it justice. I think you can explain it better, but it is very clever. Quick selfie on your phone. It basically tells you what your skin needs, and then it creates bespoke for you all the skincare, doesn't it? So you can then go onto the website and I think choose like the cleanser, the serum you want, what type of SPF. And I love the fact that everything's created fresh for you, so that there's no sort of, I don't know, bottles of moisturizer sat around on a shop shelf gathering dust over years. It's all sort of box fresh and ready to go on your skin. It's very, very clever. But one thing we must talk about just before we finish and move on to our next panelist is the new Endo Lift, because this is the most recent string to your bow, and I just think it's a great sort of thing to wrap up on exactly how you're helping us to grow a new body. What does it do?
So again, machines going the next step, the Endo Lift. So it's microfiber laser, and this fiber is really micro. It's about the breadth of a human hair, and it can be just slid under the skin, jawline, around the eyes, the neck, top lip, and it just tightens, dissolves fat, tightens the collagen, and stimulates new collagen growth. It also can be used on other parts of the body where you've got crepey skin, hard to treat areas, the dreaded knees, dreaded ankles. But it's a
knees and ankles are such a pain, and you can't get to them with a big cool sculpting applicator. So you do need something super precise, don't you? And this is like the width of a hair.
Exactly. So, and the beauty of it is it's virtually pain-free, virtually no downtime. And as I said, all these stronger, newer machines are the opposite to what used to happen. I remember when I first started in this field, if you had something serious done, you'd be wrapped up like a mummy for about a week. And whereas this is now what's happening in the industry, it's the total opposite. You do see a result almost immediately. And then like any of the collagen remodeling situations, it can take up to 3 months, and then maybe you'll have a repeat treatment. But there's no, although you do slide this hair, the thickness of a human hair just under the skin, but there's no real incision, no pain, no downtime. It's quite,
and therefore no scars as well, because it's gone through
exactly.
an incision point which is as thick as the point of a needle. It must be incredibly powerful to deliver such an amazing effect through such a thin little thing.
And also, we've been using it a bit for, the sort of dreaded upper lip lines, all the, and even if you're not a smoker, I have so many poor patients come and say, I don't smoke, but I've got these.
But I have that, and Botox in your upper lip is, I'm sorry, though I've not been through childbirth or anything, so I can't compare, but God, it's one of the most excruciating things, having your upper lip injected. So I would be very down with having some Endo Lift there instead, I would say.
And what I have noticed in recent times, Francesca, is when you watch various celebrities on the TV now, they've had such wonderful work done to their face. But as we know, what has been lacking is the neck, and people are getting around, getting a handle on the neck and doing quite a lot of treatments. But the last area, and, obviously under the eyes, but the last area I've been noticing is that there's still, so the whole face, neck, everything's looking great. And when you look carefully, because being the London Lip Queen, there's still a deficiency of treatment on that top lip. And so this is what we're aiming to try and tackle. And as you know, with all these and even the machines, that's why we have so many machines. Often, we have use 3 or 4 machines together to get our desired result. But so this is another aid in trying to get that top lip looking.
You're very eagle-eyed, spotting the last little bit that we all need, but that's why you're so popular, and that's why we'll always come to you for all of these things. Dr. Rakus, thank you so much for being with us tonight. That was such a whirlwind overview of everything you do. We barely skimmed the surface, but I hope it gave everyone some food for thought. And if anyone has any questions for Dr. Rakus on any of her amazing technologies, then just drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom. I think there are already some questions, but we will come to all of those at the very end. Thank you very much, Dr. Rakus.
It's been a great pleasure. I'm really looking forward to hearing all the expertise of the rest of the team. It's very exciting.
You're all incredibly complimentary, so I'm really excited to see how the conversation evolves. Our next speaker is the wonderful Ms. Nora Nugent, our breast and body specialist surgeon based down in Kent. Nora, it's so wonderful to have you with us here tonight. Thank you for joining the webinar.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been great to hear Rita's innovations, and it's amazing what can be done now within the clinic. So I'm very impressed.
Well, I think it's a lovely sort of segue into talking about what you do, Nora, which is obviously at the surgical, the sort of sharper knife end of things, which obviously there is also a need for once well, if that's the choice you choose to make, or whether maybe Rita's machines aren't sort of quite doing it. But tell me a little bit about the current situation, because surgery has obviously grown a huge amount since we were in that first lockdown sort of back in March last year. And I think the thing with us all working from home means that we've got so much more time to research and to recover. So is that something that you're seeing start to come through in the patients who reach out to you at the moment?
Yes, definitely. So I'm seeing a lot of patients who are using this time to reevaluate and work out what they want to do next, if it's something, if surgery is something they're considering. And many people are using it as a means to do research and start the consultation process. And then for some people, it's also a good time for looking at recovery time from surgery as well. So yes, we're seeing quite a demand for consultations and people interested in surgery.
You must be a busy lady. I mean, it's interesting because I think all throughout lockdown and, ever since March last year, we keep talking about Zoom face. And actually, I think what, the past sort of period of confinement has done is also thrown a lot of scrutiny onto our bodies. And probably we're at home so much and sort of not really taking the care to sort of, wear the sort of right clothes and dress in a certain way. So I think, we do have this greater sense of body awareness. And certainly now, I think a lot of us are looking for some optimism in life, and we're looking ahead and planning summer holidays and dreaming about the time when we can sort of get back in a bikini or whatever. So what about those little bits of our body that we do sort of find a little bit bothersome, the stubborn areas that are just difficult to shift through diet and exercise? What's your first foray as a surgeon?
So for those stubborn pockets, and for women, it's often around the hips or upper thighs. Liposuction's for that. And small volume liposuction can be done under local anesthesia. Larger volume requires a general anesthetic. But for those stubborn areas, sometimes the lower tummy, hips, thighs, liposuction is a very effective way of removing that fat and giving a natural contour. And it's actually the best indication for liposuction. It's where it works best.
Yeah, and what about the downtime from liposuction? How quickly can you sort of spring back into action?
So it's pretty normal to have swelling and bruising afterwards, and we put in fluid to do liposuction. So it's part of it is the surgical fluid put in that you then naturally need some time to get rid of. Normally, it's about a 4-week recovery to get back to unrestricted exercise, but you're mobile immediately and out. You can be out and about the next day. I get people to wear the swelling, and if they're able to, lymphatic drainage is brilliant at improving recovery. It really, really speeds it up. But to get a complete recovery back to everything as usual, usually about 4 weeks.
Okay, what are your thoughts? You just mentioned...
But most people are up and about.
Sorry, I think there's a dodgy Wi-Fi signal going on. I don't want to interrupt you. I was going to ask about MLD, because you just mentioned that as a nice way to speed up healing. At what point after a liposuction procedure should you be doing something like manual lymphatic drainage?
So it can be done almost straight away. And my patients generally have any day up to about 2 weeks later starting it. In general, the earlier you do it and the more sessions you have, the more of an effect it has. But if someone doesn't do it straight away and reconsiders after a week, you can still start that. But MLD is very gentle, very effective, but very gentle. So it can be done almost straight away after surgery. And I only wish more of my patients would undertake MLD. I think it really makes a difference.
I think it's something that they are very big on in places like Brazil and Portugal, but we're a little slower to adopt it over here in the UK. It's interesting to hear you say that it's something you can do more or less straight away, because I think that's a very modern thought process behind it. But no, that's all really positive. And tell us a little bit about breast and body, because that's a huge focus within your practice. It'd be interesting to know who the sort of average woman that you're seeing at the moment is.
So one of my biggest groups patients for breast surgery are women after pregnancy and after childbirth, and it's quite common that they see me for both breast and tummies, because both are affected by pregnancy and breastfeeding.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's generally a lot to answer for. So I see a lot of people looking for a tummy tuck after pregnancy. It's all down to skin elasticity as well as how big people were during the pregnancy. But if you
And is it fair to assume this is after they've finished having all of their children?
Yes, definitely. Best at the end, once your family is complete. It's not dangerous to have more, but it undoes the effect.
Yeah, that's so true. You don't want to go through all that hard work and then. Oh, Nora, are you still with us?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I think we're going in and out with some Wi-Fi. So tell us about how you do this combined procedure.
So for tummies, it's usually a tummy tuck, and what we do is I do surgery in the room with the patient before the surgery, measure out the loose skin, measure where the scar will be, and check the muscle spread, because it's separated muscles as well. For breast surgery, whether it's a lift or an augmentation or a reduction or a mixture, then I also measure out the breast as well, because breasts are very different when you're lying flat. So it's important to do it while someone's standing up. So that's the start. Then in the surgery, I would normally do the tummy first. What we do is lift the loose skin first, tighten the muscles down the center, because that really makes a difference to get a flat tummy, and then see how much skin is and remove that. Sometimes I do liposuction as well if someone needs more shape at the waist or the hips. So often I would combine liposuction with the tummy tuck, and then I would do breast surgery after the tummy if I'm going to do breast surgery as well. Sometimes I can use the fat removed by liposuction from the tummy as a transfer to breasts if someone needs more volume in their breasts. So we can overlap the surgeries to some degree and utilize everything as naturally as possible. And then I would do the breast surgery as a second step. And it's very variable what the breast surgery is, because people get different effects from pregnancy. But it could be anything from an augmentation or a lift or a reduction.
And what? Well, I suppose actually it's not your preferred method; it's what the patient's preferred method is when it comes to that breast augmentation. But what are you saying? I don't know if it's just what I'm hearing at the moment. I feel like there's been a real rise in people looking for uplifts, particularly following sort of pregnancy, but also just in later life, and maybe coming away more from implants. What are your thoughts?
So I think people have realized that implants are very good, and they're still the mainstay to enlarge breasts, that they do come with maintenance, and fat has the advantage of less maintenance. So it doesn't give the same volume increase as an implant, and sometimes more than one transfer is needed. But once that surgery is done, there's much less maintenance than with a breast implant.
Yes.
And in fact, often we actually combine. You can use a smaller implant and use a layer of fat to soften the outline of the implant.
That's very nice. You can smooth that ridge, can't you?
Someone who still would like more surgery.
Yes, I think that's always something to bear in mind, isn't it? Sort of how slender the patient is. There's one question that's come through again, and I'm just going to ask it now whilst we're on the subject. But when should you be changing breast implants, and what is involved? Is it easy to take the old implants out and replace with new ones?
So I think the first thing to say is that the average time to change a breast implant is somewhere between 10 and 15 years after having it put in. So
10 and 15 years
last 10 to 15. Yeah. Some people get much longer without a problem. So if there's no problem, you don't have to change an implant just because it's 10 years old. But on average, the lifespan is 10 to 15 years. Sometimes it's a problem with the implant, and the implant is old and needs to be changed. Sometimes it's the fact that your breast has changed. You may since you had your implants put in, your weight may have changed. There may be some breast aging. So sometimes it's reshaping of the breast that's needed, and sometimes it's a combination of both. And sometimes it's a change of mind. People change their minds about having implants, might want to change for fat transfer or not have implants.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that 10 to 15 year window doesn't sound very much, but actually I think it can take you from one very significant milestone in a woman's life. You know, maybe it was post-pregnancy, and then 15 years later, you know, you're at a very different chapter of life again. And I think actually it's interesting that, you know, probably we want to choose an aesthetic in terms of our breasts that sort of fits with the chapter of life that we're perhaps in at that point.
Completely. Our lives change. Our ideas of what we want changes, and you know, also surgery, so newer techniques become available. So our bodies can change as well. So sometimes after pregnancy you lose volume, sometimes you gain it, so you might not need implants anymore, and sometimes you know, the newer implants are more suited. So implants are not bad, they're a very good option for people, but it's just important to know the options available, and know, just as you can choose to put your implants in, you choose to have your improved. It's about knowing what's involved.
That's true. And we're having so many developments now with implants. You know, the technology is always moving along. You've got these very new, modern, lightweight sort of implants that are very popular. And one question that came in is whether you can combine the sculpting liposuction with breast fat transfer surgery all in one operation. Is that something you do? And if so, what's the sort of surgery and downtime on that?
So yes, it is do. So I'm doing liposuction and breast transfer. The downtime is actually pretty similar to either operation on its own, and it's definitely something that can be combined. It's still about a 4-week downtime. It's about 8 weeks to see the final results of the fat transfer, but the downtime and recovery is about the same for the combined surgery as it is individually. It just, obviously the bruising and swelling might be over a more extensive area and doing liposuction as well as using the fat for transfer, but the overall downtime is actually quite similar and the recovery is quite similar, so they're very easily combined.
And there's real elegance in these combined procedures, I think, as well. You know, if you can make a woman feel more confident about two areas of her body that have always slightly sort of bothered her, or things that have shifted over time, then I think that's a really wonderful thing. I mean, talking about sort of body confidence in a deeper sort of way, we often talk about sort of the breasts and the tummies with the surgeries that you do, but you also do sort of more intimate surgeries, things like labiaplasties. Is that something that you're seeing more of a movement towards? I mean, we spoke about the Mzella chair with Dr. Rakus and, you know, why we're all sort of doing vaginal tightening, but what about the surgeries that you do?
So I mainly do labiaplasty for that area, and it too is an operation that really can alter someone's confidence. That there's a huge range of what's normal, so it's not necessary that people are abnormal, but sometimes if they've got a slightly large labia, it can be uncomfortable or it can be an issue, and labiaplasty surgery very effectively reshapes the inner labia, the inner lips of the labia. And again, it can be combined with some of the other surgeries I mentioned, or it can be done on its own. On its own, it can be done with a combination of numbing cream and local anesthetic.
Oh, that's great.
Local anesthetic procedure.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's becoming more common, actually mainly because people are more aware it can be done. It's around a long time, but the numbers are increasing because people.
Sorry, I feel like I may have lost you there, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying, which is that it's increasing over time. And I'm not surprised, because I think we often talk about sort of vaginas and labiaplasties as being the last taboo, but I certainly think, you know, that's definitely sort of being broken down now, that stigma. And also, as much as there is a functional element, there is an aesthetic gain to it as well. And I think, you know, anything we can do for our bodies that addresses those two things is always a really powerful thing. I mean, in a lockdown, as we are, we're obviously very, very restricted in terms of being able to forge ahead and sort of really embark on any of these procedures with you right now. But if you are considering surgery, I suppose, what are the things that we can be doing to prepare ourselves for the road ahead?
So I think there's several things that can be done. I think the first is psychologically, what's motivating you for surgery? Why do you want it, and what changes you're hoping for? Because you need to understand yourself what you're looking for, not necessarily what procedure you want, but what change you want and why you want it, and why are you considering it.
So being very honest with yourself, really.
There's a lot. Yes, yeah, because it's important to understand your motivation for it and to understand what you would like changed and what changes you want. So to be clear in your own mind first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And physically, there's quite a bit physically as well. So things like making sure that you're eating well, exercising regularly, at a steady weight. Most of these surgeries that I'm talking about, a steady weight and a healthy weight, I can get better results and do the surgery safer and get you an easier recovery if you're well prepared beforehand. So actually there's quite a bit that can be done now. And the final thing, research. This time, even if you don't go ahead with surgery at this time, it can be used to research the procedure, research the surgeon, and get a clearer idea again of how to go about it and what's available.
Exactly. And you're obviously sort of one of many doctors and surgeons who's offering the virtual consultations as well, aren't you? So how do they work for somebody who is tentatively thinking about boobs or tummies or vaginas and, you know, wanting it sorted? How do they sort of approach you?
So what I'm doing now during lockdown is doing the first consultation as a virtual consultation, and that can be video or telephone. And then the second follow-up consultation is actually examine you. The virtual one can be booked by my office very easily. And what they will do for something like breast and body surgery is they will check if you're comfortable submitting photographs in advance of the surgery. If so, then obviously, or in advance of the consultation, and then I can have a look at the surgery and give, or at the photographs, and give a very clear idea of what the surgery needs to involve to achieve the surgery. And I have 3D software that works for some procedures. It doesn't work for all procedures, but I can simulate.
That's very good for the breast augmentations, isn't it?
It's excellent for breast augmentations. That's can be for other surgery, but breast augmentation is where it excels. It's really useful for that.
And sometimes, you know, in much as Dr. Rakus was talking about integrating technology into finding out how to best look after your skin, I think technology plays a really important role in helping us to understand what our body goals could realistically be. You know, these programs aren't designed to sell us something that is an unrealistic body goal, but I think they are designed to give us confidence in our bodies and show us what the most natural end result could be. Thank you so much, Nora. It's been amazing to chat with you.
Thank you. And sorry about the Wi-Fi.
We're overlapping. I'm so sorry. We've got a couple of questions I know that are very specifically towards you, so I'm sure we'll come back to those at the end and we'll touch base on a few more things. But thank you very much for being with us as always. Lovely speaking with you.
Thank you so much.
Not at all. So our final speaker is Dr. Ursula Levine. You met her about 45 minutes ago. Hi again, Dr. Levine. Lanserhof's in-house integrative health expert. So she is very adept at blending FX Maya methods with a bit of traditional Chinese medicine and really just a very 360-degree approach to optimal health and well-being. We're going to find out more from her. She'll do it more justice than me. But Dr. Levine, firstly, thank you for joining us. And secondly, maybe we can talk about immunity, because I think, you know, we're talking about all these ways to enhance our bodies, but I think the one thing that a lot of us are thinking, you know, as we're waiting for a vaccine to sort of make its way into our arms, is how we can boost immunity and resilience at a time like this.
Well, thank you. Well, immunity is a crucial thing at the moment, right? And how you say correctly, I'm an integrative doctor. So I see immunity not only for the physical aspect of our lives, but also in all other aspects where we can create resilience and therefore immunity. So it's the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional parts in our lives. And the immunity is when you think about, and when we go back to the fasting, when you mentioned the FX Meyer basis that we base the Lanserhof medicine on, our immune system has two systems. The one that is innate, that we have all in common basically, and then we have the adaptive immune system. And this is where we can actually do something good, or we can actually, you know, do things where things go wrong, right?
So we've got two immune sort of systems, and one is sort of set in stone and we can't do much about that, but there is one that we can affect by our everyday choices.
Yes, exactly. And this is the fifth element of our health. This is the epigenetics, where we can take the choices, right? So do we eat healthy food? Do we breathe healthy air? Are we in healthy relationships? And so when we talk about nutrition and when we talk about food, so this is the first step when we talk about fasting, and I will talk later about that fasting does not only affect our bodies, yeah, but when you think about eating and when we talk about detox, there are the 4 deadly sins that I have already mentioned in the past about eating. So we eat too fast, we eat too much, we eat too often, and we eat too late before we go to bed. And I always say,
I know we're doing it all wrong, aren't we?
So when we don't consider these 4 things, you know, we don't even need to talk about what we're eating, right? So we need to discuss.
We need to actually first address our habits surrounding food before we actually think about the nitty gritty of it.
Exactly, because actually what we do then with our food comes first. What do we decide, right? And that goes a little bit to comes that back to my previous colleague who just spoke about, you know, we need to ask people what do you want? Yeah,
exactly.
So we have
how prepared are you to sign up to this actually?
Exactly, and this is the ambivalence, right? So this sort of the first step in the right direction. So fasting is not only about cutting calories, yeah. And Dr. Rakus has spoken a little bit about that, because FX Meyer, who was also an Austrian doctor like I am, when he came up with the concept of this fasting program, it boils down in modern technology. We would say we reduce the fast to, or we give the gut as few molecules to deal with as possible. So
you go easy on the gut, you don't overburden it.
Exactly. And this is what Dr. Rakus mentioned already. It's about the reset, like a computer. Yeah. So the fast is something that you do for a limited amount of time. So this is not what we're talking about healthy nutrition at home. This is for a limited, we're talking about a restrictive diet for a limited amount of time.
What is a limited amount of time? Is this 7 days? Is this 2 weeks? Is it a month?
So ideally, you would take at least 7 days, because we sort of consider that the gut lining renews itself in about 7 days.
Really?
So every period would be a 7, a 14, a 21 day period, right? And this is where you would go ideally to a resort where you can address not only the physical aspect, but also the emotional, the mental, and everything else. Yeah.
So we all need to find a week in our lives to go to Lanserhof in Germany or Austria. I mean, they are beautiful places, and I do think it helps to be in the right environment to make these changes sometimes.
Well, we are sort of soon will be pioneering a new project where we will offer the walk-in version of the fasting program. So,
but in London,
yes,
you'll be offering this.
Yes.
Well, this is going to be very interesting, because I wonder if people will be able to stick to all of those routines and not restrictions, that's the wrong word, but sort of habits that they have to sort of embrace when they're actually at home, because it's very different when you're actually in a clinic, isn't it? And you're somebody else is in control of your food.
Well, obviously, it's a different setting, but at the same time, you don't have to travel, and we all know how difficult that is in this day and age at the moment. But you will be guided through these days, and you have treatments and assessments and diagnostics every day. So every day something is going on, and you will discuss and feedback and report and have, you know, supportive treatments throughout. Yeah. So the fasting is based on these 6 pillars that the FX Meyer implemented in his medicine, which is the resting. Yeah. So the restrictive diet, where we give the gut actually a reset, and you have very little in the sense of a monotony. Yeah. And this is when I just had this conversation with a patient today who told me that she eats little portions, but throughout the day, right? But when
is that a good thing or not a good thing?
That's not,
no, because your gut is always then having to work, isn't it? It never gets to rest.
Correctly, because when you consider that everything that you put inside your body creates inflammation, right? So, and the more you eat at the wrong time, the wrong way, the more inflammation it creates. Yeah,
exactly.
So Dr. Meyer would have said, you know, the food ferments and rots inside you, right? So this doesn't sound very nice, and it's actually,
that's why they say no raw food after 4 p.m. or something, because you don't want it sitting in your stomach for too long.
Well, this is part of the idea, right? But the monotony of the food and the regular meals with maximum 3 meals a day gives your gut the rest to rest and digest.
And when you're talking about sort of minimal meals, what food are people even eating on this at-home Lanserhof program?
So the lowest level that you would be put on, and this is how Dr. Meyer started, would be a protein source, yeah, like a yogurt or a curd, yeah, to have
very Austrian.
Yes. And well, Dr. Meyer started with a glass of milk and a bread roll. So
yes, and I'm definitely sure I ate that at Lanserhof every morning. I think I had a buckwheat roll for breakfast.
Yes, and
slightly stale, so you have to chew it over and over.
Exactly, because the buckwheat roll or the cracker doesn't really have nutritional value in this sense. It is a so-called chewing trainer, and the word training comes into it. That's the second pillar of this kind of fasting, because you need to chew your food properly. And FX Meyer would say, you know, it doesn't really matter what you eat as long as you chew it properly. Because
that's true.
Because you expose the food to the enzymes that it needs already in the mouth. And if you gobble things down, you know, they sit there and literally can't be disposed of. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's particularly prevalent when you're thinking of things like meat. You know, it really does remind you that you really have to chew these things to enable the gut to process them. Yes. And the other thing that you say is not to drink water at the same time. Is that right?
Well, when you drink too much during the meals, this dilutes the gastric juices. So we encourage patients to drink between the meals and not during the meal, right?
Right.
So the chewing, then the cleansing is the third part, yeah. And when you think about what spa actually means, spa means sanus per aquam, which means health through water.
So, I never knew that. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So the bath, you know, not only from the outside, and you know, the water treading that you do in the resorts. Obviously, we can't do this here, but we encourage hot and cold showers. We have the cryo chamber here, where we can sort of mimic the stimulation for the immune system with the temperature. Right.
The cryotherapy is very clever. It's like Dr. Rakus was talking again, as you mentioned, about switching on a computer again, sort of rebooting your body. That's the effect it seems to have.
Yeah, and I have done it myself, and it's amazing. I always compare.
I love it.
You know, having a glass of champagne under your skin, this is how you feel afterwards.
That's so true.
And you don't have to detox afterwards. Yeah.
It's really nice in summer, the cryotherapy, I find. I don't know if I could do it in the middle of January, but in the summer, it's lovely and cooling.
Well, you go out in a normally heated room, right? So well, obviously it's different in summer, but you also go in the sauna in summer. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's about the stimulation of the immune system, right?
Yeah, but maybe we can talk a bit more. I mean, a bit more about fasting, because it's a very effective route to regeneration. But is that just to do with the gut, or does it do something to like the cells in your body? I feel like it's sort of, how does it trick your body into sort of thinking that it's younger?
Well, what happens, and there is amazing research out there, then that fasting has an impact on longevity. When you think about a chromosome, and the chromosome has end areas like hands and feet, right?
Yes.
These hands and feet are the telomeres, and these telomeres, they disappear when a cell divides. So when a cell ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through fasting, you can actually prevent these telomeres from disappearing. So that means you actually actively stop the aging process.
And you can even turn it back.
Exactly. Yeah. So it has a repair capacity. And obviously it depends, when you do fasting on a regular basis, the better the outcome is. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't make sense when you between the fast, you go back into your old habits. But this is why I said fasting is not only about the physical aspect, it's about your mental aspect and this ambivalence, because how you feel after the fasting, that literally, your brain fog is gone, your sense of smell is different. You smell things, you taste things in a different way, right? So
it's interesting. It's like every sense is heightened as a result. Like all of the bodily systems can perform so much more effectively because your energy isn't being taken up by your gut.
Absolutely. And it has a very, it has an impact on your brain as well, because when you think about that, the cells in the gut lining are similarly built to the cells that protect the brain from the blood, right? So there is this sort of brain and gut connection that we only just start knowing about, right? So the brain is very much connected to what you eat. And one very famous Austrian psychiatrist said, my hospital would be empty if my patients would eat healthily.
That's very funny.
It might sound very provocative, but it definitely helps, yeah. And
sorry to interrupt. Tell me quickly about intermittent fasting as well, because you and I have spoken about this before, and that's a slightly different principle, and that's very much about consuming all of your calories in just one window, isn't it?
Well, the intermittent fasting is sort of reduced to a time interval, yeah. So at the moment, it looks as if the so-called 16-8 is very effective, right?
So 16 hours of not eating, 8 hours of eating, not continuous eating, but eating your meals within an 8-hour window.
Within this time frame, right? Yes. So with the FX Maya fasting, you would eat 3 times a day, albeit very restricted. Yeah. And obviously, we do diagnostics as well. So we do extensive gut health testing and blood testing, and we will substitute any deficiencies with IV treatments and orally as well.
That was going to be my next question for you, because for people who maybe don't want to do the fasting, but they're still looking for other ways to sort of enhance longevity and immunity, what are the supplements or the IV drips that could be beneficial to them?
Well, we try to do these programs as tailor-made and as personalized as possible. Yeah. So obviously there are certain things that refer to us all, in winter, living where we live, we all can consider that we are vitamin D deficient. Yeah. So vitamin D is a good thing. Vitamin C is a good thing. Magnesium is something that we all should take. Yeah. But then other than that, obviously selenium and zinc are are detox and anti-inflammatory. But other than that, I would go for a more personalized treatment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would test patients and we would assess if there are any deficiencies, and then tailor-make oral supplements. And we work with a supplement where we actually can create a supplement that is bespoke for you. So you
can create a bespoke oral supplement or a bespoke IV supplement.
Both.
Wow, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, so the oral supplement is like a granulate that you take, and you take a spoonful in the morning and a spoonful in the evening, and it literally has everything you need in there, what you need.
Oh, great.
And obviously,
because I know at Lanserhof you do lots of sort of magnesium water and you do the Epsom salts, so it's just another water soluble thing, which I suppose makes it so much more convenient.
Well, no, this granulate is not water soluble. This is the supplement with all the nutrients and the micronutrients and minerals that you need. The magnesium is literally the flushing from the inside. Yeah, that helps the gut to cleanse. Yeah.
Yes, I
so
see.
That's not
necessarily it relaxes it.
meant as a supplement as such. That has the effect on the cleansing. Yeah.
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 And talking about sort of, you're saying it's not just about the physical, you know, it's a 360 approach, and, you know, obviously we have to take our minds and our emotional sort of side into context as well. Are there any practices that can really help to boost immunity during the winter? Anything else that we can do that doesn't involve our gut, I suppose?
Well, I think the most important thing is that we sleep enough. Sleep, and this is sort of, it was neglected for a long time, and in the past we talked about the multitasking that everybody put into our lap, that women should do it, or women are capable of it, and we don't sleep enough. And I always say a biphasic sleep, so afternoon nap is not for losers. So if you can, have a nap in the afternoon as well. And our sleep, because we don't sleep enough.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And I also heard that the most successful people in the world wake up early and go to bed early. So that's also something I'm going to try and start doing, as well as my afternoon nap going forward.
Well, I think, you know, everybody has their own rhythm. Yeah, it's their own biorhythm. And the important thing about it, in Chinese medicine, we say, you know, there is something called chronobiology. So each organ has its prime time where it works best. And
that's true. I've heard this.
Yeah. And so the digestive system works best late morning, right? So this is something we can assume. And the organ that tidies up after the party is the liver inside. Yeah.
The cleaner, yes, yeah. The detoxifier.
So the liver detoxes in the night, but the liver does not only detox alcohol or biochemicals, it detoxes everything that we experience during the day.
Interesting. So it cleans up the emotional detritus as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is why you know, dream divination or talking about dreams can be very interesting. Yeah.
God, I find dream interpretation fascinating. I think we need a whole separate webinar on dream interpretation. You'll have to come and tell us about that.
However, don't fall asleep in front of the TV, because your mind is watching. So because you literally see the pictures, although you seemingly are asleep. So if you fall asleep in front of the TV, put it on a timer.
Really? I had never heard that before. So your brain will still keep sort of digesting what's going on in the background, will it, and stay awake?
And you are sort of amassing detritus that you don't need in your system.
Yeah, and just getting a very poor quality sleep as well, which would be awful.
Yes. And then you wake up at 3 o'clock and you think, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? And you don't actually know why you're waking up. But
goodness. Okay, so no more falling asleep in front of Netflix. Yeah. Very good to know.
No blue screen in the bedroom as a rule, right? So
proper sleep hygiene.
Yeah, so this is the sleep where we can talk a lot. And what we said before, you know, to assess what do you want? Yeah.
And exactly.
The next thing is, sounds simple and stupid, but it's hydrate. Drink enough water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely something we're not doing enough of. I'm living on coffee at the moment, so I definitely need to take that on board.
Yes. And then obviously the anti-inflammatory food, food that doesn't make you ill. So all the sugars, all the pre-processed foods, the unhealthy oils, lots of carbs, lots of snacking. Just try to stay away.
Yeah, and I think, sugars are a huge one for a lot of us. And obviously, you have a little bit to start with, and then it just gradually creeps up and you can become very dependent on it.
Yes.
But it's hard to break these habits, isn't it? Once you've got into a routine of chocolate on the sofa every night.
Yes, absolutely. So the break the and as you said, you need to come up with new rituals. Yeah, and this is something when you do a fast, the fasting doctor, will help you with. Yeah. So you're not alone with all these things. Yeah. And with creating new rituals, you have to envisage, it has to do with neurobiology. When you are in a thought pattern, it's like walking in snow, and you walk in a circle, you walk always the same path, and the wall of snow gets higher and higher, seemingly, although it doesn't snow, but you are literally making your path. So
you're creating it yourself.
The first step out of there is the most important one, right? And this is like, instead of sitting on the sofa and watching Netflix, is actually go out and go for a walk.
That's such a great idea. I think it's just pushing yourself sometimes out of your comfort zone, isn't it? But actually, it's such a snowball effect. You take one positive step in the right direction, and so many other things can change. Yes. Dr. Levine, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I could chat all night to you, but I know that you've all probably got evenings to get to, and we've also got a few Q&As. But thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here with us tonight.
Thank you.
So yes, that very neatly takes us to the end of the webinar, at least the conversational, me talking to panelists part. But we will now have time for a bit of a Q&A. But before we do any of that, I would love just to say, firstly, a big thank you to all of our panelists here tonight. You've all approached the subject of how to grow a new body with such a unique stance. But I think what shines through with all of your approaches is how important hand-holding your patient is to each and every one of you. And I think that's something that a lot of us need right now. It's been an unpredictable and very turbulent year, and it doesn't mean our body goals have changed necessarily. If anything, they've sort of got even steeper, but I do think we all need your ongoing support. So it's wonderful to hear that you're offering that in such a positive and proactive way. Before we move on to the audience Q&A, can I quickly remind you that when you leave, there's a questionnaire for you to fill out. It will take you all of 2 seconds, but if you can just leave your name, email address, and anyone who answers it, we're putting you into a draw to win an array of Lanserhof supplements. So you've just heard Dr. Levine speaking about them. They're designed to optimize your sleep, your skin, and your mood. So do look out for that at the end, and I'm sure you will benefit greatly from those. Right, so I'm going to find some questions now. Dr. Rita, I think this is one for you. This is a question about body contouring. What would be the 2021 focus for non-invasive treatments? Is cryo a contender? I suppose cryolipolysis. Do you think it's going to be about fat freezing, or do you think it's going to be about the muscle strengthening like you were talking about earlier?
I think it's going to be both. As I mentioned before, rarely do we just use one technology, and also it depends where on the body you're looking at. And one of the things we do very well is actually design. It's not a matter of just coming in and let's lose 2 centimeters. As everyone was saying, what would you like, what you want, rather than just let's lose 2 centimeters or let's lose half a stone. How do you want? How does it fit your lifestyle? What sort of fashion? So cryo definitely still a serious contender.
Okay, great. And another quick one for you, which I think is relating back to the M-Sculpt Neo. Are the results permanent? Because this is quite an interesting question for a lot of these machines that we're talking about.
It depends which element you're looking at. The fat reduction is permanent, and also the skin tightening is permanent on the M-Sculpt Neo. They're now seeing that the muscle building is a lot longer lasting than they previously thought. However, you do need to keep up with an exercise program, and then sometimes after 12 or 18 months have a little booster.
Okay, great. Quick question for Nora. What are your thoughts on vaser liposuction?
So it's very good in some situations. It allows us to tighten up skin more. I think what we've got to be careful of is how it's used. It can be very good to get a very natural contour, and I don't really do abdominal etching, but I try and get a midline line and gentle curves at the side when I'm doing abdominal liposuction. And
what's abdominal etching?
Is
that trying to create a six-pack or something?
Yes, although to be honest, I don't usually go as far as creating a six-pack, more just the center line and the soft and the line at the sides. Particularly in women, it gives a more natural effect.
Exactly, it's much more appealing.
Yeah, it is how you do it. What you've got to be a little bit careful, because you can actually get the same effect with power liposuction. So what vaser adds is quite powerful, but has to be used carefully. So it can be very good for some things.
Yes, exactly. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That's very helpful. Ursula, there are a couple that just came in about sleep. Is it true only for TV and visual stimuli, or everything, including music? I think this is you saying don't fall asleep in front of the TV.
Well, of course, music influences us, and music is the one that actually has often a very positive effect, because who would put on music that you don't like in the evening when before to fall asleep, right? So you just turn it off, right? But from a Chinese point of view, the eyes are linked to the liver. And so every visual impact affects the liver sort of directly, yeah. But that would be sort of content for another talk about Chinese medicine and how these things are connected, yeah. But the visual impact affect the liver more directly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting.
But there are lots and lots of research out there how music affects your relaxation, right? We all know that, and how different, for instance, me being Austrian, waltz music, yeah, is very, very good for pregnant women, because it actually helps the baby to relax. Yeah.
Is that just because of the rhythm, like the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2? Is it the consistency of the rhythm?
I think it's the 50 megahertz frequency.
Oh wow, this is definitely a subject for another webinar, like you say.
Yeah.
And what about, sorry, one more for you, Ursula, about supplements as well. What do you think of personalized supplements based on one's genetic test results? Is that sort of what you're offering at Lanserhof then? Because you're doing the tests, aren't you, to find out what the deficiencies are?
Yeah, for these deficiencies, I don't need the genetic tests. The genetic tests are more in a general, the tests we offer here are more in a more general way about food, but not about the supplements. The supplements are a snapshot of the here and now, what you need now. The genetic testing is, for instance, how well do you metabolize caffeine, right? So that doesn't reflect how, if you have a vitamin D deficiency at the moment. So
okay, so one's almost more lifestyle in terms of things that you could change. Maybe you eliminate caffeine if you have an intolerance, whereas the indeficiencies, I suppose, rather the deficiencies would just be the supplements that you need to add in.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things here, but the personalized supplements we definitely do. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. And one for Nora, what is the recovery time on a breast reduction?
So it's about 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks off work, and about 6 weeks to get back to full exercise. So about 6 weeks to stop wearing the specific support bra and get back to exercise. 1 to 2 weeks off work, depending what you do. Okay,
and what about sort of scar maintenance? Is that something that needs to be taken into consideration, what would you do?
Yeah, so for scar maintenance, that goes on for about a year after the surgery. Massage, moisturizer, silicone scar treatments are standard. And after that, it depends how someone is healing, and I tailor it to how someone is individually healing. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes we add in additional treatments.
Okay,
like
maybe a bit of manual lymphatic drainage.
Something.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really useful for everyone. It's particularly useful if someone bruises a lot or has a lot of swelling, but it's useful for everyone.
I've got one more question for you, Nora. I had a tummy tuck 3 years ago and the area is still sore, especially after I've been sitting down. Will this ever go away, and is there anything you recommend to improve it? I mean, that's quite significant 3 years later, isn't it?
Yes, that's quite a long time after tummy tuck to still have soreness. So I guess it depends where the soreness is. If it's general skin sensitivity, then continuing massage actually does help. And the same if it's soreness in the scar. If the soreness is deeper, I would actually advise that lady to go back and see her surgeon again to get checked to see is there anything underneath with the muscle repair that needs to be looked at. But if it's on the surface, massage, and there are specific desensitization exercises that can be done if one spot is particularly sensitive. And the other thing I would check, again, if one spot is very sensitive, is it where a nerve normally runs, that could be causing the problem. So some of those things would need her to go back to her original surgeon. But in general, massage helps for that as well.
That's very cool. I like the sound of those desensitization exercises. They sound very clever. Dr. Rakus, I think there's one that you might contribute to here. What are your thoughts on laser for upper lip capillaries and pigmentation on the face? What's the best sort of device that you would offer at your clinic for that? I suppose sort of getting rid of little capillaries and pigmentation.
Well, there are many lasers for this, and we have got a new one. We're the first ones in the UK to have it, called Pro D. Just by chance. Pro D. And the beauty of this laser as well is there's very little downtime, probably about 1 or 2 hours. Because as I said originally, when you had we still have CO2 lasers and all that, but you'd be wrapped up like a mummy for a week. So it's
quite terrifying. They'd strip, 10 layers off your skin, wouldn't they, almost?
It's good for fine lines, pigmentation, some capillary work, and also scars. And you read for an hour or two, and it's relatively painless. I've had it myself. Some of my areas, and I've had it under the eyes as well, decolletage, back of the hands. I have some cream on for a short period of time, or just have it straight up without cream. But that is the newest one that is helpful. However, there are many, and especially if you go to a specialist, we do laser at a reasonable range, but if you have, sometimes these treatments can be resistant. So then I would recommend to go to a specialist laser center where that's virtually what they're doing all day if you're being a bit resistant to treatments. But the new projects are looking quite promising.
So what's it called? Pro Deep?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that sounds brilliant, because it does several things all in one, doesn't it?
Exactly.
God, sorry, there's my doorbell. Okay, well, that's a great answer. And then I think I've got one final question, and I think this is probably one for Dr. Levine. Is there a supplement for menopause that we should take every day?
Well, as I said, supplementation is personalized. So this goes a bit deeper than supplementation. It's I would call that therapy, right? So there is no one size fits all, right? So it can be go into HRT therapy or into dietary advice. So I would not say there is one that anybody can take. Yeah.
I think that's the message that all three of you speakers have sort of touched upon. That there's not a one size fits all for any of these things. It is very much a bespoke approach, and I think that's something that we all have to sort of take into consideration when it comes to our own bodies. We're all incredibly unique. So yes, I think that's probably something worth bearing in mind. So I think that's brought us more or less to the end of the questions. There are a couple that are very specific that people wrote in with. I'll reply to you separately because I think that's probably the best thing. But again, another big thank you to our panelists for giving up your Monday night to do this. It's been so wonderful to see your faces, to listen to everything you need to that you've said to us, take on board all of your tips and tricks. And I'm desperate to get back in and see all of you face to face and try these great things that you've been talking to us about tonight. So huge thank you from me to all of you. And also to our audience, thank you so much for joining us. I hope it's been really inspiring and informative, and hopefully the discussion has encouraged you to start 2021 on the right foot, whatever that looks like to you. We'd love to have you back at events, webinars, however we manage to do them in the future. I think we'll be virtual for a while, sadly, but this is a lot of fun, so that's no matter. Just follow us if you're not already on Instagram. Otherwise, our website is thebeautytriangle.com. You can sign up to all of our newsletters, mailing lists, and we will send all of the information that you need to know about new talks and upcoming events. So that's it from me. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy your Monday evening. Stay safe and see you all very soon.